with that, we'll kick off our next block of really exciting talks. And I'm super honored to have another exciting speaker joining us. Loic Houssier is a vice president of engineering at DocuSign in San Francisco, where he mainly focuses on supporting the world e-signature standard product, which is saving me a lot of time, especially in COVID times. Traveling around the world has never been as easy to sign some contracts and get some stuff done without needing any scanner and like any of these like ancient devices that we barely use these days. So I'm certainly very, very appreciative for it. And Loic is a seasoned leader. He has 18 years of experience leading teams in software engineering, program management, security architecture, and critical infrastructure. And he joined DocuSign in November 2015 as a senior director of engineering based in Paris in France. And right after that, he was working for Open Trust, which was acquired by DocuSign. He is now joining us from the Bay Area, before based in Europe and Paris. So he certainly has a couple of interesting insights of the European and the American tech ecosystems. And with that, I want to really hear his talk in where he's gonna like share about like the innovation 101 and how you can hopefully copy what he has learned over an almost 20-year career in engineering. Thank you so much, Loic, for joining us. Really looking forward to hear from you.
Hi, Philip. Thank you so much for the introduction. Thank you, Philip. Thanks for the introduction. Really appreciate. Don't copy what I will say. That would be my first suggestion. That's just some of the learnings that I've had from my journey. I would say both in Europe and in the US. So for the kind of like the fun part, as I was in Europe and coming in the US, DocuSign basically appointed me to a certain role, which basically is, so I don't know if you know, but a bunch of CEOs or CTOs or CIOs coming from Europe, or even from, I would say, everywhere in the world, or people attending MBAs, they come in the Bay and they tour the different startups, or I would say the cool kids in the Valley, to understand how they work, and to understand how they innovate, so that they can try to think about the different models and apply what makes sense for them. And as I was basically the European in the room, every time European companies were coming to have some kind of a talk about innovation and the way we are doing things, I was the one doing it. So this talk basically is kind of I would say a keynote based on all those talks that I was making for small, I would say, attendance. Let's say 10 CEOs, 10 CIOs, 10 to 20-ish. So this is a different scale today. And the way I used to do it was highly interactive. I was basically doing some whiteboard session. So trying to understand what they were interested in and what they wanted to know about our ways, or what I've learned between the difference between Europe and the US. So this is not a usual talk. I mean, my slides are not really neat. I try to redo the whiteboard aspect of what I'm doing. And so I hope you'll enjoy it. And I hope you will have a lot of questions at the end. So, and I believe this will be working. And I should, yeah. So the whole purpose of this talk is to basically explain what is innovation. So we talk a lot about innovation, and there's so many different ways to look at innovation. So when I was starting to do that talk, basically for those CXO and everything, the first thing I did as an engineer was to ask Google, like, what is innovation? Because I was kind of clueless. I've seen a lot of stuff, but all my mind was not really, I would say, framed around those topics. And I wanted to understand how people were framing it. Was there something that was a standard? And that was the answer by Google. So people are asking, what are the 5 types of innovations, 2 types, 3 types, or 6 types of innovation? So long story short, I was not the only one not knowing how to frame all that noise around me. So basically what I will share with you today is just my perspective. So it's not like a really cool framework that will solve your innovation problems. It's just my feedback and my lens. This is the way I look at innovation in other companies. This is where I try to I would say, categorize the companies and understand how they basically innovate and in what way. So stay with me. In a nutshell, I try to gather all the type of innovation in those four categories. Technology innovation, pretty obvious, product, and operation and marketing, which are usually not as, I would say, fancy than the other, or we talk a bit less about them, but they are really key. Or you can be like really strong in that and not really innovate on the other side and still be successful. So let's start with the technology or the product. Product innovation, twofold. I won't spend a lot of time here. You can bring a new product to the market, or you can bring a new feature to the market. This is basically the classic innovation. I mean, you don't use new technologies, you don't change the way you operate like other companies. Marketing, you have the same way to talk about your product, same segment and everything, but you just bring a new product to the market, or you have this new feature. And I'm talking here about the stories that basically Snapchat came with, which was a pretty cool innovation for a social network. It was copied a lot by others, but we'll come back to that. The second aspect is the technology. And this is the only time I will talk about DocuSign. I'm not here to do some, I would say some ads for the company. But when you think about making agreement is a use case. And based on the evolution of the technologies, the way to do agreement change over time. So at first, we had the hand. That was the only thing to make an agreement with someone, and we were shaking hands. And that was basically the way to make a contract. And then came a huge technology innovation, which was basically the paper or the clay. But let's say the paper for the sake of this talk. And all of a sudden, now this handshake can be transformed in something that is more reliable. And you can, I would say, that can stay over time and don't just rely on words of people. So then you can have like a real signature and a contract that you can share with someone. And then came internet, another technology innovation. And with that, basically DocuSign just put that same use case into the internet world, replacing the handwritten signature with basically technologies to, I would say, provide you with some kind of a contract, a document to you. And for those who don't know, basically DocuSign is just it's a pretty cool way, by the way, to basically build a contract or an agreement and drag and drop some fields, and drag and drop a signature or a tab, send that to the people that needs to sign, and then all the workflow is managed, and basically in a matter of minutes, you can have your contract signed. So that was a huge innovation when it started, like in basically, I think it was 2002. But obviously during COVID, that was huge. I mean, for us, COVID was cynically, that was a really good news for the business. It was tough on the engineering side because we had to cope with the scale of the growth. But I would say, as every engineer in the room, that's an interesting problem to have. But nevertheless, after the internet, still new technology comes, and new technologies are basically helping you to do basically the same job. Think about blockchain, and I had a lot of people asking me about, hey, will blockchain basically ruin DocuSign business? And I said, basically, no, it's just another technology evolution. At the end of the day, you will be still doing contract and agreement, but you don't really care about the technology that is behind. So we may talk or not talk about it, but we may use blockchain or not. The reality is you need some use case to be fulfilled. Technology inside, should you really care? So that's the question. When people think about innovation in technology, they focus on those buzzwords. Like how many startups, I would say, in their name or in their first line, talk about blockchain, talk about cryptocurrency or whatever. They just focus on the technological aspect of their innovation and not about the product itself or the way to talk about the product. So that's something that is interesting, and for you to think about is if you innovate on the technology side, think about the way you talk about the product. Do you really want to emphasize on the technology side? Because the technology will change. And how will you have to change the way you talk about your product to the next evolution? Today is blockchain, but 5 years from now, it will be another technology. So if you focus solely on your technology, it won't stay long. It won't be relevant long enough, hopefully, if your company is growing. So think about it. Damn, I'm still used to use my keyboard to move the slide. On the operation way, this is one that is really interesting. And we usually don't look at it enough. The operation is basically all the things that are inside your company, the thing that people don't see when you provide your product. Think about like building a car. And I love this example. At first, a car was kind of a craftsman. It was almost an art to build a car. It was really slow. And I'm talking, I would say, in the early 20th century. So there was no automation. Every car was almost signed by hand by the person or the mechanic that was basically building the car. But that was not efficient. But anyway, so Taylor and Ford, they came with this scientific management approach to building things, especially cars. And they totally changed the way they were building cars. There were no innovation on the car themselves. I mean, maybe some, but most of the way they were innovating was in the way to deliver the car. They totally changed the way to build the car. It was not a craftsmanship anymore. It was totally industrial, with people highly dedicated to their task, people focusing on the engine, people focusing on the doors and everything, so that at the end of the day, it's the same product. But as you innovated on the operation side, the car price basically was able to drop down. So that's critical. And that was not the end of it. I would say the Toyota model was also an evolution of that. So they understood that you have to have a feedback loop that is coming back to your operation to understand, I would say, why the customer is not happy and this piece is not really done well. So they were constantly looking for the feedback so that they can basically build continuous improvement in their engine, in their way to work. And I mentioned a couple of books on the side for further reference, but the Toyota way is all about that. And what is interesting is, to come back on this software industry, is that this model and this evolution was the basis of what we call today DevOps and I would say the late evolution of that, which is DevSecOps, SRE. All of that is just operation innovation. So we innovate on the operation side of things. So when we talk about agility, and please, I would say, check the Phoenix Project book. It's amazing, written by, I would say, some famous people in the industry, and they talk about how to bring, I would say, more agility in the way you work. And basically, they came up with the first concept of Kanban in that book, and they mentioned the Toyota way being an inspiration. But I won't spend too much time there, but just I hope that you understand that you can definitely innovate internally while still bringing the same product by operating, I would say, moving that operation to the next level. You will have basically a competitive advantage, whether it is on the price, whether it is on your ability to deliver feature way faster, you get it. And last, I want to chat briefly about, I would say, the marketing aspect. I know, I would say, probably most of the people on stage are, I would say, technologists. And from what I've seen, and this is one of the big differences between Europe and the US. In Europe, when I was there, I would say a company that was doing a great marketing was basically what we call a bullshit company. That was a paperware type of company. Sure, they talk well, but what about their tech? They don't even talk about their tech. That's something that I do believe was wrong. And I was on this team. When I've seen in the US the way they talk about their product, they usually don't talk about the tech. They talk about the value. They talk about the way they solve the problem. They talk about the user bringing empathy and everything. So the messaging is definitely different, and that's key. The two other aspects that you can, I would say, innovate on the marketing side are basically your target and the pricing. The target, you can just target, do something that has already been done, but target a specific vertical. Let's say you want to do like DocuSign, but really specific to the healthcare world. So you can build a company just doing this because you will be highly understanding this use case, highly, I would say, tuning the model for them. And it's still, I would say, an innovation on top of what DocuSign was bringing, but in a different target. The last one that I want to talk about is the pricing. Think about the pricing. We used 10 years ago, when I was a kid or still young, I would say when you were buying the software, you were buying a license that was really expensive. And then some folks came with a different approach, which was the subscription. So basically, you were paying a monthly fee to get the usage of the product. Once you stop paying, you don't have access anymore, but it's basically reducing your monthly cost and the way you can basically capitalize your cost over time. So it was a great innovation on the pricing. Now you can, I don't know if you heard about Peloton and their treadmills, but they went up to basically provide subscription for treadmills, which is kind of weird because they were facing an issue where when people were stopping to pay for the membership of Peloton, the treadmills was not working anymore. So people had their treadmills in their room, not being able to use it, and felt a bit like weird about the situation. So anyway, that's basically the 4 categories of innovation that I believe are really relevant. A lot more exist, but to me, this is the easiest framework that I came up with to talk about it. Let me see. Oh, my clicker. Yep. Now, the question that you may ask is the kind of the classic, like, can I have success without innovation? Like at all? Well, you can do something new, but the reality is you can do something that works already. And that's not a bad idea. Think about Zoom. So just did the same, but do it better and do it cheaper. And that's kind of like the same approach as I would say Trello versus Jira. Did they really innovate? No, basically it's the same use case. Sure, the UI is probably a bit better, slightly better, but at the end of the day, this is just a simple solution. I would say we all complain about Jira, but think about it. When a company is successful, they are targeting way more customers. So they have to adapt to a huge amount of customers. So they had a lot of features here and there, and keeping things simple is really hard in that case because you have a lot of pressure from the customer to add some vertical specifics, some user specifics in your product. So at the end of the day, you have something like Jira that can do everything. But when you have like just a simple project in a startup, is maybe not the best use case for the tool. So basically, there's what we call the low-hand innovation, where you take something that was really working well, but do it way simpler. I would say neat UI, not a lot of options, but working like this. And that's something that you can do, I would say, pretty well successfully as a business. Now, the question is that innovation? At the end of the day, if you make money, you don't care, but that's a good question. The last I want to mention is you can also copy. You can basically do the same. This is something that I would say in the Bay, it's not really well seen. Like if you start a company to do something that is already done, it will be harder to raise money. And basically the brand won't be, I would say, as shiny as something that is, I would say, changing the way people are working. But it starts, I would say, to change for one reason. First, when the US company went to China, they entered a market where China has no, I would say, shame in basically copying what's working. So basically the entrepreneurs there are not the one with the best ideas or visionary ideas. They are basically the ones with the best operational mechanism able to implement whatever makes sense in other competitors. And now it's starting to be the kind of the same in the US. When you look at social network, I would say stories in fleets, and I won't talk too much about Twitter adding fleets, which is basically stories in their product with, I would say, a huge noise about it and a lot of people complaining. But that's something that is coming. YouTube is doing stories too now. So everyone is kind of like doing the same, especially in those highly innovative companies. So think about it. You don't have probably, I would say, when you can survive without innovation. And I want to be quick because I'm already late. But last book I want to no, not the last book, but I want to talk about this one. When you are in a company, it's easy to talk about all those innovations. Now the question is how you want to bring it, I would say, live. How you want to foster that innovation and make something about it. And it would be easier if you see the slide. So this is a summary of a book called Zone to Win. Zone to Win is a book wrote by Geoffrey Moore, talking about like bringing innovation to your market. The guy was working with Salesforce, working with Microsoft. And in a nutshell, I will just ask you to read the book. It divides the company in 4 quadrants. Productivity zone, where you have like HR, support services, where you have the people that bring the cost down. You have the performance zone, where basically you have all the activities that are bringing revenue. And this is where you track your different revenue line. Hopefully, each business line providing more than 10% of your revenue. If it's less, like the red bucket, you have to get rid of it. Don't spend your time in something that is not bringing enough revenue for you. Now, the question is how you bring this new business line with innovation. Ideally, you have an incubation zone. So basically people that are working on new ideas. And it's not especially a team. It can be a lot of teams in a different area, but they have a lot of ideas and they start working on POCs for the next generation of product. And one day you have to decide whether it is reacting like Microsoft did with Azure against AWS, or it can be basically yourself bringing that to the market because you are offensive, like was doing basically Netflix after selling DVDs. They were basically starting the streaming aspect of things. The reality is, and what they say, what it says in the book is, when you bring such an innovation in your company, do it with only one innovation. I would say a company is not able to ingest more than one innovation at a time. Anyway, I will pause there. I will stop there and just finish with, and Philippe, give me 1 minute. Give me 1 minute, and I just want to talk briefly about I would say why it's really important to have a strong culture in your company. And I will just go directly there. Everything is about the culture. Innovation is not something that you decide. Innovation is something that is coming from your employee, whether it is people that are dedicated to it, like product managers, or if it's on the operation side, people that are working on your TechOps organization, DevOps organization. They need to have the time to test some stuff. They need to have the time to fail. And I would suggest you to read 2 books. One is Creativity Inc., which has been written by the CEO of Pixar, and who become basically the CEO of Disney Studio. And he talked about people that are strongly opinionated about their ideas being probably stupid, which was basically the Walt Disney way, where if you were not a art director, you were not allowed to talk about your ideas. And the second one, which is really interesting, is about the commander of a submarine turned the ship around, where this guy explained how he was commanding a submarine, but people were only being followers and him being the leader. And he wanted to change that in a way where people were leaders of their own area, and changing the relationship into leader-leader and not leader-follower. And all of those books were really impactful for me in my life. And so I would strongly suggest you to take the time. Easy read, really interesting, and gives a lot of ideas on how to foster innovation in your company. And I will stop here.
Thank you so much, Loic. It sounds like you're a spring of innovation, so you could probably keep going and listening to you for another hour or two easily. So as you said earlier, that you're very familiar with giving Silicon Valley innovation tours to Europeans coming over. So thank you very much. Really, really enjoyed it. And for all the audience members who want to continue this conversation and ask Loic more questions, he's going to be available after this in a few minutes in the dedicated Q&A stage, where you can ask him all your questions one-on-one, and he'll be happy to respond to those. So with that, I'll let Loic switch to the other tool and join in there. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Bye, folks.